Very good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on Mirror Now. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. First up, breaking news coming in. Well, Pakistani terrorist on-camera confession where he says that I was trained by the Pak Army. The terrorist says Pak Army taught me how to shoot. I was paid 20,000 rupees after joining Lashkar. Pak terrorist also says I was told lies about Indian Army and I witnessed that there were no atrocities in Kashmir. Also, the terrorist says that Indian Army has treated me well. This is an on-camera confession of the terrorist caught in Uri. Sohail Saran joining me live. Sohail, so this is an important expose where we have a first-hand account from the terrorist himself who gives out the details, actually saying that he was trained by the Pakistani Army. Now, this is a very big disclosure. Here is a terrorist talking about being trained by the official army of Pakistan.
Yes, Afrida, it's absolutely a big confession that coming from a terrorist who has been caught alive by Indian Army along line of control in Uri sector, and in fact he says that he was trained by a Subedar rank officer of Indian Army, and in fact during this training in Muzaffarabad, which is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, there were 9 people and he was the youngest one. In fact, the army had promised him money, and in fact if he gets killed in Kashmir during any encounter, he was told that his family members would be given money, and in fact he had received a amount of rupees 20,000 already from Pakistani Army. So it's clearly a confession that too coming from a terrorist who was caught alive, and his accomplice was killed, and it was a 9-day long operation along line of control, because the Indian Army had inputs about infiltration, and in fact this was the biggest infiltration build that was foiled by Indian Army, because earlier 3 terrorists were killed, and on 26th, this Babar, who comes from Okara district of Punjab province, he was caught alive and his accomplice was killed. But the confession he has given that there are atrocities happening in Kashmir. The Indian Army, allegedly there were a lot of things that were told him about Indian Army, but he realized that whatever path he had chosen was completely wrong. And in fact, during this confession, he says about the things that he was trained in a terror camp in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. There were other people as well, and they were told to carry out attacks in Kashmir Valley, and was given huge arms supply, because when he was caught alive there were a lot of grenades, AK-47 rifles and other things that were recovered from his possession, and in fact same amount of cash was also recovered from his accomplice who was killed along with him. So this shows that the Pakistan Army is training the militants whosoever is crossing over to India when they infiltrate into the Indian territory, because earlier we used to think that only the terror camps like Jaish, Lashkar-e-Taiba, they train, but now this confession coming from a terrorist who has been caught alive, clearly saying that the Pakistani Army is training them and telling them how they have to infiltrate into the Indian territory.
Yes, and some interesting details, Sohail, was shared earlier by the Major General as well, when he spoke about one terrorist being caught and one being neutralized. Apparently, Sohail, this particular terrorist pleaded for his life. He asked to be spared of his life, and that is how he is in Indian Army's custody now. What would be the importance of this confession and this kind of disclosure for the Army and for the Government of India per se?
See, Afrida, for some time now, there has been many attempts of infiltration along line of control, and especially we have seen over the years that before it snows on the peaks of Kashmir Valley along line of control, the terrorists try to infiltrate into the Indian territory, because it becomes very difficult for them to cross over when it snows, and because of the mountainous path and snowfall, which is more than 10 to 20 feet, it becomes difficult for terrorists to intrude into the Indian territory. But they try to infiltrate before before it snows. So mostly the infiltration takes place in between September and October. So this time the terrorist who has been caught alive, he has given he has confessed about the routes they had taken and how they were told to infiltrate. So this will certainly help help the Indian Army as exactly what kind of paths and what is the route they are choosing these days, because there have been attempts of infiltration, and since Taliban has taken over Afghanistan, so all the terror camps that are based out of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, they feel strengthened because many of their men were already the part of this whole issue that has taken place in Afghanistan. So many of them have come back to their camps that are based out of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So many are trying to sneak into the Indian territory. So this particular terrorist who has been caught alive has actually given the details about the infiltration path they had taken over and how they were trained and what they were told, what was the brief that was given to them, what they have to do. So that will certainly help the Indian Army to beef up its grid along line of control, which has been already done since there were attempts, and in fact it was a 9-day long operation and there were continuous search along line of control because other parts of the frontier sector as well, there also security grid and an anti-infiltration build was beefed up. So but this very development is important because the person clearly says where exactly are the terror camps, where they are being trained, what Pakistani army is telling them, and what kind of path they have to choose and how they can sneak into the Indian territory is definitely an important information for Indian Army.
Yes. Yes, a lot of information that India can confront Pakistan with, given the confession coming from a terrorist who claims to be trained under the Pakistan army. Thanks for joining us with the latest, Sohail.